Technically, those might hit. That is pretty close to an intersection. Don't look. Don't look. You'll jinx it. Don't look. Resist. Bro, he had the god dodge. And now look at this. Those better not range. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Kunming. This is the Super Pan-Asian destroyer. This featuring torpedo reload booster for 15 deep water torps at a time. 30 deep waters in total is kind of wild. This is easily the best flank that I've ever had in this ship. Pushing Libertad, pushing GK, Kearsarge chilling in his planes, completely unaware of what's about to happen to them. Notice we are about 2.5 minutes into this battle. Libertad has no idea these torps are on his side, and we nearly one-shot him. Don't worry, there's more where that came from. The rest of those torps are looking pretty good. The ship is absolutely incredible when we get these opportunities. It's the ultimate in feast or famine. Another 3 torp hits on the Kearsarge, who, by the way, chilling in his planes. Plane spotting a bit of a problem, but he's not back at his ship to damage control. So we're going to keep ticking up with some flooding damage as well. Crazy stuff here. These deep waters do a ton of damage. They're so well concealed, they basically pop up beside your ship, and you get 30 of them at once, assuming you have a reload booster available. This ship is incredibly powerful when we get these opportunities. We're going to do around 150,000 damage to this flank in about 3.5 minutes. Crazy stuff. But that is not my experience the vast majority of the time when playing this ship, okay? Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. You spawn into a super ship game, even a high tier, tier 10 game, in your torpedo destroyer. You have to deal with, generally, a pretty good gunboat on your side. Anything that has 200,000 or more HE DPM, very difficult to deal with that, even if you do outspot them. And then once that is finally dealt with, you may have a chance to go after the enemy battleships, the larger, slower ships that are great for dealing with torpedoes. And then there's radars around. How do we push into that? Let alone things like plane spotting or submarines spotting you as well. Good luck dealing with that. The vast majority of games did not look like this one, okay? I really need to be clear here because this game was absolutely incredible. So good. We're even going to get some value out of these main guns. Yes, the guns here are not completely useless. This is a solid torpedo boat. It's definitely in the torpo camp. But these guns are still worth using, and I want to show you quite a few clips of them. However, a big nerf that this ship gets over Yueyang is its gun range, actually. I think having 13.5 kilometers of gun range is bad. 13.4. We're spotted right now because of the GK. If we had the normal 11.9 kilometer gun range, I think I would have gone undetected because that GK wouldn't have been in my gun range. And the Jinan was in smoke, as well as the Gudin was behind the smoke as well. Although perhaps this dalarna in the middle of the map would have been spotting me anyway. But I do think this gun range is actually a disadvantage. The guns are good at close range. The DPM here is actually decent. 172,000 HE DPM. For reference, something like a Fletcher tier 9 gunboat, pretty solid, is around 160,000 HE DPM. So we're a primarily torp boat with around a tier 9 solid gunboat level of DPM. We're not going to be out DPMing a dalarna in a fair fight, but why would we take a fair fight, right? In this case, he doesn't have a smoke. Our teammates were spotting him after he was firing, and we get a lot of free damage in. And these smokes, these Pan-Asian smokes, are very, very good for this. They come back quickly, and they're not quite as fast as like the bursty smokes we see on like British destroyers, but these last a little bit longer, allowing you to farm a little bit more, but still come back quick enough that I find that I can still use them to get out of bad situations, use them very aggressively, and I really, really do like that a lot. The main damage, though, of course, is the torpedoes with this one. So these torps are pretty much identical to Yueyang. You just get a whole nother launcher. So 15 torps total. You do get a little bit longer reload on them as a result, but not nearly as much as you would think. 139 second base reload here versus 129 second on Yueyang. 10 seconds longer reload for a whole nother rack of 5 torps. Yeah, sign me up for that. Yes, we are to tier higher, super destroyers, super ships tier. In this case, that is basically the main upgrade. Slightly more DPM on the main guns, but not by much. Larger hull, though, by quite a lot. I did notice that as a bit of a downside here, too. 6-kilometer detect, slightly worse. I think 5.8 kilometers is what we see on Yueyang at its best. Not a huge difference there, but that can sometimes matter. And as for those consumables, exactly the same. You do have the option of using a radar. I tried it a little bit. It's much worse than doing radar Yueyang, especially if you have legendary mod Yueyang. Surprisingly fun, that one, honestly, and pairs much better with the radar playstyle. I would definitely play this one just as a pure torp boat. Maximize those torps as much as you can. Hope that you get matchmaker like this one that allows you to get 16 torp hits. Are we serious? What is going on here? Yeah, this was the only good game that I had as far as just the whole duration allowing us to play for torpedoes. Most of my games looked a lot like this one. We're still going to do decent work here, but try and get the cap early, trying to contest the enemy gunboat here. Harugamo, we can barely outspot him. Then there's just a radar on this flank that hasn't been spotted yet. There is a Des Moines on that island. That is tough for us to deal with. We have a bit more HP than Yueyang, but a larger target to hit, so we're going to take more damage because of that. And our rudder shift is quite a bit worse. 4.4 second rudder shift versus 3.1 on Yueyang. Bigger target, less maneuverable. 700 meter turning circle radius versus 620 on Yueyang. Much more maneuverable there. So I would consider it about similar as far as their survivability goes, maybe even slightly worse to the super ship here. Speaking of Yueyangs, there we go. Bit of a gunfight here, although he's got a lot of backup and I don't, so we got to try and get out of this situation. But notice the guns, again. The guns do surprisingly, well, when you get lucky with a triple fire, I suppose. But the alpha damage, here we go. 3,500 alpha damage. It's decent gun power. Don't just not use your guns with Kunming. And I'm saying this not because I see everybody playing this ship and only using torps and never using their guns, like with Shimikazes, for example. But I'm assuming people just generally use it as a torp boat. I don't know, because I don't see it very often, to be honest with you. The ship does not get played very much. The Yamagiri is the primary super torp boat destroyer. And I guess I can kind of see why. Better detect and the option to run longer range torpedoes. You don't get locked out quite so much like I did with this ship. But I think for the torpedoes at these closer ranges, I would much prefer to play Kunming torpedoes than Yamagiri torpedoes. We'll see. I will have to take a look at that ship soon as we're going over these super ships in 2026. It's actually been 3 years or so. It's been since 2023 that I actually last played this ship. I was pleasantly surprised with how it went. Oh, look, another radar. Yeah, it's still very hard to play DDs in 2026, especially trying to get a lot of value out of torpedo boats. It's really a feast or famine sort of experience. You guys probably know that, but that is the problem here with playing a Kunming. It's very, very dedicated to enemies pushing in against you. And a lot of games are played at such long ranges, and the amount of spotting that's out there, it's very, very difficult for you to actually push up and reliably land a lot of torpedoes. Now, if you manage to survive these radars, as we just barely are able to in this one, you can still get a lot of value out of these torpedoes, just chucking them into very common choke points. A lot of times, people are going to turn broadside to these torps that you would not expect. This case here with this Awami, he doesn't spot him. He still doesn't spot him. He still doesn't spot them. It's 0.8 kilometer detect. They basically spawn right now. And at that point, there's no dodging it, right? I rarely have that happen with any other torps other than deep waters. That's the really special thing about these torpedoes is there's very little reaction time. So they have to be dodging them based on kind of feeling rather than actually seeing those torpedoes. Uh-oh, another radar, and we're on 900 HP. Use that engine boost, try to get away. Adrenaline Rush getting us down to like an 85-second torp reload is kind of crazy. Oh, the gap. Poor Des Moines with his dispersion. We do get away, though. And now I'm just going to be spotting and contesting caps for the most part in this one. Got to be very careful not to get caught in another radar. Now, you guys know me. I am more of a gunboat destroyer than a torp boat DD. So I had to try it with guns. When I saw that it was okay DPM, I had to give it a go. And it's fine. Definitely torps are the better way to go with it. You can build for guns and it's okay in that role. I think the base gun power is good enough for taking those unfair fights with your smokes. trying to open water gunboat. The shell velocity here, I mean, it's terrible. Like, look, 7 kilometers away, and it's still a lot of lead that we're going to have to give to actually hit this Fletcher. We take a massive hit in return. That's another weakness here is you have so much lead to give to actually land these shells, and you're pretty large target. So trying to actually use these guns at the ranges where they're valuable, which is, I would say, sub 8 kilometers, you're liable to take a lot of damage from those cruisers, which misplay on my part, certainly, but trying to force these things. But they're still worth using. In this case, Yamagiri barely gets spotted. Fortunately, could not get a shot into us. And with Des Moines radar backing us up, why don't we smoke up? Take a bit of an unfair fight here and do actually a lot of damage, right? This is the whole idea with this ship, is you have solid enough guns to take some of these engagements if you get the opportunity. You don't want to just take a fair open water fight, but take these unfair engagements around islands using someone else's spotting if they shoot in open water. If there's a radar, smoke up, use your guns, because taking out those DDs will allow you to get more clever, interesting torp angles. In this case, playing very early in this map, it's like not even 4 minutes into this battle. We'll take a small gunfight here with the Yamagiri. The enemies are pretty far away. But notice where the Mecklenburg is pushing on the map? Yeah, we'll get a torp there. And I staggered a second set. I didn't instantly use my booster. We'll stagger out that second set, lull them into thinking that, hey, the torps already came through here. There's not going to be another set for another 2 minutes or so, right? This is something you can also do, considering the torpedo reload booster. Very, very powerful torp boat. Decent enough gunboat that we're actually going to take out that Yamagiri there. I know Yamagiri not the strongest gunboat either, but if we just said, I don't want to shoot my guns, there's a Petro 10 kilometers away, I need to get away, I need to stay alive, well, that Yamagiri might not have died there. And well worth using our guns in a lot of these situations. And we do get those follow-up torpedoes. Very, very fun. Early in this battle, no radars on this flank. Pretty cool, so we can play very aggressive into this cap zone. And the Zorkiy's firing. We're not the ones spotting anymore. Our battleships in spawn, basically, are actually spotting this guy. So we can take an unfair fight again. This is how you want to be using those smokes. We don't have heals, we don't have much sustain, so we want to take as many of these unfair engagements as possible. If we had, say, the American smokes that last forever and take a long time to come back, this would be very committal. In this case, though, the smokes come back relatively fast, so I feel very good about trading a few shots here and there and then getting out. Okay, I'm worried about Blucher's actually 8-kilometer radar. We still want to focus on those torpedoes, but here's another use case for smoking up is you pop the damage control with landing a bunch of torpedoes and then try and light some follow-up fires, especially if the enemy battleships are still spotted. Just sitting in smoke and farming, I think, is not a great use of this ship. Certainly did not have great results doing that. Spotting for my team, going to the flanks, trying to deal with enemy pushes especially. That's where I got the most value out of this ship. If the enemy team just runs away from you on a flank, which, let's be honest, it's a bit unfortunate, but blowouts happen a lot these days, you kind of just have to write that off as a, well, that's is what it is. There's nothing I could do about it, which isn't very fun. I know, it's not very fun, but that is the way Super Ships tier is, unfortunately. So for these super destroyers, I do think gunboats get a little bit more consistent value. Though at their peak, this first battle with Kunming that I showed you was absolutely ridiculous. And that torp power was absolutely incredible. It's really fun when you get that opportunity, but it took me a long time to get even that one battle. So unfortunately, that's kind of where torp boats generally stand at this Super Ships tier. If you really like that playstyle, maybe it's a more chill playstyle. You're not as interested in getting good, incredible games all the time, but relax, maybe spot the enemy flank, and then when you get the opportunities to go for those torps, you can have some fun that way. I could see that being a nice chiller playstyle than going for all action gunboat DDs, shoot your guns all the time. This could be a good one for you to go for. I hadn't played this in over 3 years now, and I'm glad we're looking at it again because I had a good time for the most part when the game let me, when the matchmaker allowed. And I suppose that would be a limitation for a lot of these super DDs. Now, comparing them to super battleships, super cruisers, there's not as much of an upgrade here. Like, there's no F key here on this ship. Yeah, you get the torp upgrade over something like Yueyang, but I mean, let's be honest, some of these super cruisers and certainly some of the super battleships, they feel like 2 tiers better than their tier 10 counterparts. We do burn down that Ohio though, so maybe these guns aren't too bad. Took a while to do that though. Perhaps we're better off spotting and torping instead of just trying to smoke up and farm. Perhaps the best way I can put it is ships like Kunming and the rest of the super destroyers feel like more logical steps up to a potential tier 11. I know they don't call it that, but that's kind of what this is, right? Considering you can face tier 9s. These DDs feel more reasonable, and they're still very, very powerful, mind you, but perhaps some of these cruisers and battleships feel more like a tier 12 or 13 maybe, if we look at some of the carriers, for example. So they're still very good to go for, but they cost a lot and they don't give you as overwhelming as a, you know, Annapolis or Condi, things like this. Satsuma F key, Maine perhaps even, giving you those such massive advantages, which I think is a good thing, by the way. Just to be very clear, I think it's better that these are more of a normal tier 11 jump rather than such a massive bump up, because it makes it more fair to fight. In this case, 6 kilometer detect is fine, but feels a little bit worse alongside the reduced maneuverability. It is a little bit faster though, which I do appreciate. 15 torps with 106-second reload here if you go with this build. I would definitely recommend running the Special Commander if you have them, because it's pretty easy to get this upgrade. 6 torp hits for 5% torp speed, 25% torp reload booster consumable cooldown, and you get a whole nother charge of it. Meaning we don't necessarily have to go Superintendent. Really, for the torp reload booster is why I would go Superintendent. I don't feel like I need that many engine boosts, or certainly the smoke screens. Another advantage of these Pan-Asian smokes, you get a lot of them base. So it allows me to still go for a bit of main guns, but mostly for torpedoes, and still get that incredible adrenaline rush buff. And of course, our standard 10-pointer for basically all DDs. First 10 points, I think, preventive maintenance, last stand, survivability expert, concealment expert. First 10 points, this is basically always going to be there, unless there's some very niche gunboat open water DDs, for example. And then I'd go AR for the 13th point. Anyways, this is generally the build that I landed on. The gunboat build, if you're wondering, I would run that same commander just with main battery mod 3 and main aiming systems mod 1. I don't think that was worth it. The guns were more than good enough when I went full torps anyway. Again, trying to think about unfair engagements. How can I take a best advantage of this gunfight that I'm about to take? Generally revolving around smokes and teammates spotting for you, for example, and then using them defensively to get away a lot of the time. It's a very good torp destroyer. Very, very good. I love the deep waters. I struggle to hit torps a lot of the time, if I'm being honest with you. So crutching on just such insane concealed torpedoes seems to help me out quite a lot, I gotta say. And that torp reload booster is pretty nice for when I completely whiff the first salvo and I know the enemy's about to turn broadside. I can send out a second set to hopefully redeem myself. It's a good DD. Super ships tier though, if we're comparing to some of those craziest super ships, this is not much of an upgrade over the tier 10s in relative to those wild upgrades, but I think that's good. I do think that is good. This is a solid Pan-Asian destroyer. So if you really like the line, this could be it for you. Although, you know, if you're interested in leg mod Yueyang with a radar, that probably is still better at that playstyle. I wouldn't really run radar Kunming, for example. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.